Good evening and welcome to, I was going to say JG's Fight Talk, but that's a different channel. GB Boxing and Fighting Irish. And with me tonight, as usual, we have Adam and we have Luke. And I said I'd wear a special jersey for the occasion, because Arsenal's top of the tree. So there you go. We're a bit like Alexander Usyk this weekend, unbeaten. So, yeah, what did you make of the weekend's action? Will we start with the big one, or what way do you want to do this?
Probably best to work our way up the card, isn't it?
Yeah, probably the way to do it. Otherwise, because I reckon once we start talking on this, that'll be it. So we might as well go through the card. So when did everyone join in? So I caught bits and bobs.
Well, we actually have a comment for once. Stephen McGuire says, "Good evening, guys. Look forward to your take on the fights. I haven't seen them yet. You better not spoil it. Apart from the second half of Usyk Belcherkov." Okay. I've seen lots of comments saying Hergovich was a bit fortunate. We'll discuss that.
Yeah,
we'll let you know, Stephen. Okay, guys. You have the floor. Whoever wants to take the floor there.
So I caught bits and bobs at the end of the card. We were away out, and I came in at the Badu Jack fight.
Yeah.
And to my eternal discredit, I've forgotten the guy's name, so if somebody can look that up off screen. I literally looked at it 2 minutes ago and it's gone. I thought Badu Jack was slightly fortunate, but it wasn't as bad as you'd have seen online. I had it. I think I said to you guys it was 5-5. But the 6-4 is fine. I think the problem we've got in fights like this is basically the guy who was fighting, very fluid, very explosive, but a lot of work into his style. Like, it was hard work. Whereas Badu Jack was very composed and didn't expend an awful lot of energy. Now, he looked every inch 38 years old fighter who was was 2 weight classes above where he was fighting. But still, it was one of those ones where you looked at it and go, he's making Badu Jack really bad, but towards the end of the fight, as the gas tank goes, as it will, if you fight like that.
Vieira, by the way.
Vieira, yeah, there we go. So once his gas tank starts to go down, Jack's going to keep going, and it's basically a case of can he catch up to him? And I think he was a mite fortunate, but and I've been saying this for years. When it comes,
sorry, I just have to do a correction. It's McGurr, not McGuire. I'm obviously confused by that superstar of Manchester United, the bridge. But anyway,
yes.
Back to the boxing.
So when you're judging a fight, or what I've noticed when judges judge the fight is, if you win in the early rounds, if there is a remotely close early round, judges will tend to split. Okay, so even if we're watching, say it's a 12-round fight, first 4 rounds, generally speaking, across the 3 judges, there will be some sort of split. By the time the end of the fight occurs, the pattern has been set, and the judges have decided what they like, and they go with it. Now, was it Vieira?
Rivera.
Rivera lost, for me, the last 4 rounds.
Yes, I agree.
But he lost them in a row, and that's never good. And I thought he gradually started to lose those more and more, obviously. And what happens is at the end, if you've scored the first 6 for Rivera, which was perfectly reasonable, I think I gave Jack maybe one other, but you only need 1 change in order for that to be a draw. You can't give away and if you look at all these major fights, the guy who, if it's remotely close, comes on strong at the end, almost always gets to the decision. And it's just the way people judge fights. So that was my thought on that one. Both solid cruiserweights. They're not going to trouble the elite end.
Yeah, weren't they kind of wanting to get in with Coley? Wasn't that what their box office?
No, Macabu.
Sorry?
Macabu. That's what they were looking at.
So Badu Jack wants to get in on the WBC title. But
everyone seems to want Macabu.
Yeah. Well, it's because Belly was able to beat him, so everyone else thinks they can.
Well,
it's good. Is he not with Don King?
Yeah.
Yeah, no one's making that fight. No one's going near Don King now. Especially, I mean, they shouldn't, and especially after the Dubois thing, like no one's going to make that fight.
How anyone
has gone near him since the 80s is beyond me.
Yeah, it's nuts, but I can't see that one happening. So I thought the cards was brilliant in terms of, I thought certainly the 4 I saw, every fight was really good.
Yeah,
I watched everything.
I think I was in the minority in not liking the other heavyweight fight. I really didn't like that fight at all.
I enjoyed it.
But
What
one I
did
did
you
like was not the next one we're going to discuss. It was the co-main event. It was Smith Border League, but we'll get to that after we review the other heavyweight fight.
We're talking Zhang. Talking Zhang Hrgovic.
Yeah.
So I have some reasonably strong opinions on that. Luke, do you want to add anything in before I ramble away?
I'll apologise to Zhilei Zhang, first and foremost. He showed a lot more than what I ever thought he had in him. And at 39, he's got a decent engine. He wasn't goosed after 4 rounds, but I think that was because he was fighting at his own pace. And, you know, he was let fight at his own pace. But I thought he won the fight. And, you know, I thought he was very unfortunate there. But I still think off that performance, there was no loser. I think Zhang has upped his credibility even in the loss. And he's got a big fight next. Maybe even Joshua.
That we can get to. But yeah, I thought it was so I would also like to apologise to Zhilei Zhang. That was much, much better than I thought he was capable of, and he's able to sustain it a lot more, and I agree. He still doesn't have the engine he needs.
After 12, though, he was nearly puking in the ring.
Well, this was the thing. If you watch the fight early on, when he was really blitzing Hrgovic, he was throwing consistently. There is a dramatic decrease in his output, but he had a solid enough engine that he could stay up. He's got a chin, got a proper chin, and he throws the technique on his left hand and the kind of the right hook that would come round over Hrgovic's loose front hand was beautiful. But he can't throw enough, if that makes sense, for any major one. And Filip Hrgovic looked dreadful. Like, honestly, I think we said last time, I've seen Hrgovic regress through his professional career. Like, he was a really good amateur and gradually regressed. And that was like the culmination in it. It was bizarre.
Yeah, he won Olympic bronze. Was it 2012?
2016.
2016, in Rio.
Yeah, in Rio. Because he was the other, I think Jalolov was the other bronze medalist there. And he's progressed so much further. But honestly, Hrgovic just looked like he had gone backwards and backwards. So I scored about 114, 113, just purely for the fact that as Zhang tired, just the sheer number of punches Hrgovic was throwing was winning him rounds towards the end. But the slightly weird knockdown in the first, in terms of, like, you hit him with a punch and he went down, but it was kind of the back of the head, and it wasn't with the knuckle of the glove, it was with the inside of the glove. But you give it a knockdown. Zhang was very unfortunate not to win that fight. Again, it's another one. The decision wasn't as bad as everyone made out online, or certainly I thought.
Online exaggeration. Oh my God!
It certainly was not the worst card given that night. But Hrgovic, I don't know who Hrgovic fights next. I don't know who he is because he's now the mandatory challenger. Usyk's not going to fight Hrgovic. He'll get a vacant title shot. Don't know who that's against. If I was a top heavyweight, I'd be screaming for that one because he's looked terrible.
Usyk could deal with Hrgovic in 5 or 6 rounds.
Yeah.
Joe Joyce, would that be something Joyce should be looking for?
Yeah, Joyce would walk through him as well. But the thing with Joyce is he's got Parker and then he's the WBO mandatory, so he'll wait as well.
Yeah.
So it's all kind of there. So, like, who does Hrgovic fight? You've got to go down the rankings and kind of decide. But he was it's bizarre because he's got a good straight punches, a little slappy with his left hand. He just seems to be regressing. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's a training thing.
For a big, tall, experienced man as well, he doesn't deal with pressure well at all.
No. I thought he was going to spew it at one stage. I thought he's had enough. And he just, I don't know.
Yeah, and Stephen's just come in on that, and he did say he heard various comments on this one. Some seem to enjoy it, some rubbish it. Well,
I think it depends on what you like. If you like, so the main event before we get to it was technically fantastic. Like, it was a really, really good boxing match.
I loved the main event, and I couldn't believe people were giving out about it.
So people complain about everything.
Obviously, I like technical boxing. I don't like basham boxing. That being said, I like basham boxing if it's skillful and stuff. But this sloppiness, I really have no time for sloppy boxing.
If you like two big men punching each other really, really hard, which I do, then it was fine. Like, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought Zhang punched really well. punches really nicely. Got heavy hands, just is not able to sustain it. And Hrgovic was kind of the opposite, was a bit fitter, but just wasn't able to punch through him. You could see the drop, like the gap in quality between the main event and the co-main event was huge.
But
it wasn't a brawl, so to speak. They were trying to land good, clean shots. They weren't trying to swing haymakers.
Stephen, it was the Hrgovic fight we assumed we're talking about.
Yeah.
But no, the punches were crisp when they were thrown and when they landed. It wasn't like a barroom brawl in there. It wasn't like watching Alan Babic. Do you know what I mean? It was proper.
Who's fighting in Albania this weekend, isn't he?
It was proper.
It was
Thursday,
proper form and technique.
Yeah,
Thursday. That's on the
Zone.
what's it called? Marco, isn't it?
Yeah, Florian Marco.
Yeah. But yeah, I think.
Marco. Sorry, I don't mix up Babic and Marco.
To be quite honest, Babic is now in with a fair shout to try and fight Hrgovic, because I know he was calling his name early on.
Yeah.
And people were rubbishing it, saying one's an Olympic boxer, one's a street brawler. But I think now their styles, it might be the right time. It could make for an exciting affair.
I think if you're going to make that fight, it needs to be now.
Yeah.
Because I think I love Alan Babic, but he's 200 pounds and if he fights Rivas, I don't think he'll beat Rivas. And I think if you're going to give him now, Hrgovic has been poorer and poorer, and this would be when it would be most sellable.
Like I don't
rate Babic in the slightest, but he's a very fun watch.
And
I think his toughness against the style of Hrgovic is the difference. Because Hrgovic won't stand his ground like a David Price would, just for example. Same kind of similar frame, but David Price will stand his ground and dig, whereas Hrgovic should be put on the back foot and he'll stay there. And I think, as you said, he nearly spewed it the other night. And he didn't, fair play to him, but he didn't win that fight. And I think he knows in himself as well. Because he looked like he was surprised when his hand got raised and stuff like that. And he just seemed dejected after their fight. So that could be a big confidence knock for him.
Expected to get him out of there so much sooner.
Yeah, well, look, like we all said last week, after 3 rounds, Zhang's finished. But he showed us the other night he wasn't,
Yeah, but was that a reflection on Zhang or a reflection on Hrgovic?
both.
I think it was a bit of both, because we've seen Zhang be finished on his own in 3 rounds. Like, he wasn't. I don't think Forrest made him fight particularly hard, and he was done
there on Saturday.
Well, who would you put Zhang in with next?
Chisora, maybe Joshua.
If you're going to do that, Joshua,
not a bit too much for him.
Well, Joshua would be far too much for him. But if you're going to do the crow's nest or the bird's nest fight,
whatever it's called, the bird's nest.
The one out in China. If you're going to do that one, the stadium fight in China, no. Do it now. It's great because Joshua's got no expectations on his next fight. Go out, do a huge event in China, and that's fine. I've got no issues with that fight at all.
No. And like people
need to remember, just maybe getting a bit ahead here, but with Joshua's comeback fight, no one slagged Fury when he fought Hammer. No one slagged Fury when he rematched Chisora. No one slagged him with Wallen. No one slagged him with Safari. You know what I mean?
I find Fury seems to get a pass at most things, but that's just me.
Every boxer goes through that rebuilding stage. Joshua never had that, even after losing to Ruiz. Now, Ruiz was his own worst enemy. But Joshua deserves not an easy fight, but a comeback fight.
Well, yes.
And,
I mean, if he's
at the end of the day, what's funny is Joshua says how much he hates southpaws, and I can't think of a southpaw with a harder left hand than Zhang.
Yeah.
So it could be fireworks. Do you know, it could be fireworks, and I think Chisora versus Zhang is a hell of a scrap for.
I think that would be.
But no, if I was Anthony Joshua, I'd seriously consider that, because I don't know how much the bird's nest holds, but I'm sure it's near enough 100,000. In China, a new market, could become a big star over there too.
Very good.
Like
Chinese market.
The other cards, like I watched it from the YouTube stream all the way through to the top. Ben Whittaker.
How's your Ukrainian?
Was all right.
nothing better than
all right, to be honest. He didn't really let his hands go much.
Apparently, it's a shoulder injury.
Yeah,
Is
and
that
it
right?
was taken at short enough notice, wasn't it?
Not
So
really.
they knew that was the plan, but
Yeah.
apparently he's got quite a bad left shoulder injury, so he might be out for a while now.
Okay. And that probably
Explains why the activity wasn't really there.
Mm.
As well, the punch, I don't think he's as big a puncher as he'd like to be. Maybe when he goes down the weight properly, he will be, because he might be a bit bigger then. But I don't think he is as big. He's a sharp puncher. I don't think he's a KO puncher, so to speak.
Yep.
The other fights on YouTube are kind of like Andrew Tabitha versus James Wilson. James Wilson was so. The matchup intrigued me, really did.
Do you know what was fun? The Saudi Arabian guy, the float fight.
The float, yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. He was decent, but
I'm
yeah, Wilson,
push it along.
Wilson and Tabitha was very odd. Now Tabitha just had him on the end of a jab, bashed into the body, landed a few right hands. Now the fella who was in Wilson's corner, Coach Mustafa, I follow him on Instagram the last few years. He's a fantastic coach, got great insight into boxing, but the style he had Wilson fighting in just doesn't suit Wilson. He's not a fast, reflexive fighter, and he had him fighting in the Philly shell, and he didn't have the head movement or feet to get out of the way of anything. So it was an easy win.
Great.
And then there's nothing else really worth talking about on the YouTube part.
Are we going to move to the co-main?
Ramna Ali, very quickly.
Well, we already talked about the co-main.
Yeah, Callum Smith, we missed.
Yeah, Callum
Smith was before Zhang and Hrgovic.
Oh, apologies, he was. You're correct.
You have Ramna Ali as well.
Good punch. That's all it was, wasn't it? That was all it was.
I mean, the girl, she'd obviously never been hit before, because she'd 10 knockout wins.
Yeah.
Oh, we've never seen that on his own card, have we?
And it wasn't a DAZN card, but Ramla cracked with a right hand.
Everywhere except the UK and Ireland, it was DAZN.
Yeah, but it wasn't
solely Matchroom either. It was a mixture.
I didn't say Matchroom. I said DAZN.
DAZN and Matchroom are the one.
They're not.
But with Ramna Ali, I never considered her a puncher before the other night, and I still don't really. Your one went down very easy. It must have just been, those Everlast gloves as well. I wouldn't fancy a crack off then.
No.
But
anyway, it was all window dressing essentially for Saudi Arabia to have a woman's fight on.
Of course, she's a Muslim woman herself, and I think it meant more to her than it would to most women boxers to do that out there.
Yeah, but
she knows and understands the struggles of the Muslim women in those countries.
It was just being used.
But she's very,
she's
very proud.
And entry in the Eurovision with the poor little disabled girl just basically being used because everybody hated Russia at that point, and they just put her out there and she couldn't sing, and it was ridiculous.
Ramla
had as much right to be out there as any of the men on the card, though. So
no, but
I don't think she was.
Why she was put on the card? I'm not saying her herself.
Well, she's part of 258 as well, and she's managed by them. Same reason Ben Whittaker was out there. No,
but Ben Whittaker wasn't there it wasn't there as a political kind of window dressing the way the women's fight was. I mean, this was sports washing in its finest form.
It's hard. So I think the 2 points there you make was this weekend sports washing, which it absolutely was, but that doesn't affect Ramla herself.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in Thailand, that was like a legitimate fight, and I've got a lot of love for her. It's a great story, and she's a legitimately good boxer, and it's quite hard to be.
As Luke pointed out, her opponent looked like she'd never been punched before. I mean, so what does that tell you?
That's what it tells me is it's the same in most women's boxing until you get to the top level.
Yeah. It's a very shallow pool.
It's what it is. If you think it's the number of just the sheer number of competitors, you're just not going to have that quality now until you get to the top. And it's the same with any
Sandy Ryan. Look at Sandy Ryan in her 3rd fight, having to fight an ex-world champ. So it's just the pool is shallow.
Adam's boxing show has joined us. Just saying, what's up, guys? And what's up is we're
Um,
in the women's fight Ali on Ramna Ali in Saudi Arabia. And
Adam shares some great fantasy matchups. I love his tweets. So glad
yeah,
he joined in.
so great to have you on. So will we move on to the Callum Smith fight next?
Yeah.
Big up, Luke. Called it.
Where's
Big up,
my-
Luke. He
where's my-
called it.
Where's my money, boys? Where's my £100?
If you bet money on that, because here's a little spoiler alert: nobody won on the main event.
Yeah.
No.
We all picked.
Nobody went
stoppages.
point.
But no, Smith did, without being funny, he did exactly what I thought he would do against the southpaw who likes to throw right hooks.
Mm.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
It was a fairly.
I was very impressed by Callum, to be fair, and I'm quite critical of the Smiths for whatever reason. But I just thought he was very, very good. However, I think Berbatov is a big, big step up, and I don't see it.
He's head and shoulders. That's what he is.
Yeah.
Beterbiev. He's head and shoulders.
But like, I mean, it's like this whole Twitter talk. Oh yeah, he's going to take on Beterbiev in Anfield, and he's going to do the devil. I'm like, he's not. Like,
Well,
I mean,
but I'll walk. We'll go because I think we were kind of talking about this in the WhatsApp group. This is the progression and how I see it happening. Beterbiev is an absolute monster. Is a top 10 pound for pound, and is a phenomenal light heavyweight. One of the best light heavyweights we've had in donkey's years. He is, however, 38, 37, 38 now. He has just injured his foot. He is big at the weight and has been at that weight for pretty much his whole career. He's now not going to be able to fight Yard, who's his next fight, till March, is what we're hearing.
March to pencil in.
So at the rate these guys fight, that means he will not fight Callum Smith until next October, where he'll be 38 and a bit, and at best will be coming off 6 months of inactivity, potentially even more if he's injured again. Somebody is going to get lucky, in inverted commas. Somebody's going to get him at the right time, and you can see it happening. It was the same with. I thought Bradis was the best cruiserweight in the world. I thought he was a brilliant fighter. I thought he gave Usyk the hardest fight of his career. But he came off a lot of inactivity. He came off a few injuries, and a quality fighter beat him. I don't know, we had this conversation last time. Callum Smith is a legitimately world-class guy. Like he's a fantastic fighter.
well, I really liked his shot selection and the power behind him there on Saturday night. It really made me sit up and go, okay, yeah, I like this guy. And like I think we were saying in the WhatsApp group, if that fight was made at Anfield, I would want to be there so bad, because it would be explosive.
I totally agree with Stephen's comment there as well, just before I say what I was going to say. The weight does suit Callum Smith better. He's still huge. He can end up a cruiserweight and
he's as tall as
probably do
Usyk.
all right. Yeah, he is. Yeah.
And McGurr, Stephen had said the same there. He said he thinks this weight suits him better. And again, I will agree with you all. It absolutely does.
With Beterbiev, the one thing that impressed me in his last fight against Smith Jr. I was getting mixed up there because it's Smith and Smith.
Yeah.
Beterbiev actually got quicker.
At his ripe old
age of 38, he actually improved his foot speed and his hand speed. And that's not an easy thing to do at any age. And I think the fact that he's able to do that, the fact that he's always in shape, you never see him with a bit of weight on him ever. I think he, as big as he is, I think he doesn't go anything over 13 and a half stone. I don't think he's anything more. And I think the longevity will be there for him in his legs.
Easier if you listen to what Anthony Joshua said during his speech.
Yeah.
But no, like I think he will be quite fresh. And another thing is with him as well, he doesn't take much punishment.
No.
He's never he's been hit 4 or 5 times decently, and 2 of those was against Callum Johnson. Do you know, I've never seen him apart from Callum Johnson, never really seen him hurt. And I think that will add a bit of longevity. So even at 38 and a bit, I still think he'll be too much for the top guys. I think he's the type of. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, certainly at the minute, what I find is mildly frustrating with a lot of this is people like, I don't want to see that fight. I don't want to see him fight this guy because I don't see the point in it. And I'm like, guys, he's got to fight somebody. You've got to watch him fight somebody, and it's not going to be Bivol. We know it's not going to be Bivol with everything going on, but why wouldn't we want him? If his next run, I think it was everything boxing put up, is Yard, Smith, Buatsi. That is a brilliant run of fights.
Yeah,
I want to see those fights. I want to see him fight.
So he'd fight Britons.
If you think, though, look at Roy Jones when he went up to light heavyweight, especially. He fought often, but everyone he fought wasn't so great. But he kept himself busy, and then when the big fights came, he was fresh. He was active, and he was beating them. Like, people discount his win over Clinton Woods. Clinton Woods was a very good fighter, and Jones just made nothing of him. You know what I mean? So, like, I think if Beterbiev does that run of 3 fighters, people say, "Oh, I wouldn't want to see him versus him." Sure, Canelo was able to beat Smith. Smith at light heavyweight is a different monster to what Canelo fought, and I think the occasion got to Smith's head as well.
I think it was the occasion that spooked Smith more than anything. You know,
like
we had this discussion as well. Like, me and Adam both said we love Liam and Callum, rate them very highly.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at Liam, if Callum had Liam's attitude against Canelo,
right, that's a different fight.
I don't care what anyone says. And I think Liam Smith has given Canelo his hardest fight physically, outside of probably Golovkin, above 154.
Like, he gave
Canelo a good bit of bother early on. Like, Canelo had to think, and then he landed the body shot, and it was over.
It was the gears, wasn't it? It was just Canelo
it
was
was
able to go up one more gear, and Liam didn't have it.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't think he had as much of a torrid time against anyone else. Like, Saunders landed a few shots, but Smith was able to mix it with him for 7 out of 9 rounds. You know, and it was certainly competitive early on.
Yeah, because
but like
with
sorry, go on, Enda.
No, you go on.
With Callum Smith now at light heavyweight and with Buddy McGirt, I think he will learn the inside game a lot better as well, which is something that is lacking with Joe Gallagher's fighters. They like to have that closed off style and fight, get close, but a lot of them don't know how to fight in close properly. They look for that body shot, but they don't know how to defend themselves in close. We've seen that, unfortunately, with the likes of Crolla. You know, he had that style. He got close, but he often got caught.
Well, I found Crolla was very limited.
He made the most of what he had.
Exactly.
And it's the same with Scott Quigg. Again, great at getting in close, but not great at defending himself up close.
Yeah. And Stephen back there with those 3, he said he picked Callum over Yardy or Buatsi, but be brilliant fights. Well, I think so too. I think
he's the best. Now, I know we want to do an episode on this, so I don't want to say too much. But I agree with Steve. I'm not going to say anything else. I do agree with Stephen though there.
Yes. That's a special sneak peek into our
yes.
episode.
But no, I think Callum, with the spite, with the size, with the healthiness, and not having to deplete himself, he's a real challenger at that weight. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a belt around his waist within 2 years.
I think he wins the world title. He's still hittable. That's the thing, because he's a big guy, and he hasn't got. And the way he jabs, his jab is to set things up, not to dictate.
Jab.
He shows brilliant. Like, his left hook's phenomenal. It's so short and compact with such brilliantly long levers. But if you fight at Callum's distance, then he's an absolute nightmare. And I do think he wins the world title.
Yeah, Stephen, then going back, he needs to stay busy, as Luke said. I think he's been badly promoted at times. But
the only thing with that as well is with busyness, the tournament that he was in never bodes well for busyness. Do you know? There'd just be delays. There was delays in that one, I believe. The final was pushed back. Now I think
shoulder.
Yeah, so there should be clauses in that tournament that you can have a stay busy fight or something. Whether you win or lose, risk it. That's your risk. But I think you should be allowed to do that.
He made a lot of money out of that tournament.
Oh yeah,
that's a lot of money out of that tournament.
Yeah, I often wonder who financed that whole tournament.
You'll never know.
But with Groves, like that victory, I'll never forget that night because he didn't beat Groves. he battered him.
I love George.
Yeah.
That was a hard fight. And I think with George had one of the best jabs I've seen. Like, it was a great jab. And I think with George's left shoulder gone, because I think they were saying it was maybe 50% by the time the fight came round. You can't go into a fight with somebody who's that good. Like, I picked Callum to win that tournament from the start. And you can't go into that kind of fight with, like, your best weapon cut in half. But we're going off on a tangent.
What would you say then about Stephen McGurr's accusation that he's badly promoted at times?
I think that's agreed, but I think sometimes they don't necessarily do themselves any great favours with things like Callum. So Callum fought on the last card, if I'm correct, and then hasn't fought again. And that was his choice. So this time was his choice. He had a kid, which is totally understandable, but it's things like this that really hamper the activity. Obviously, if you go into these tournaments, it's difficult for promoters because the promoters don't take charge of that. I like Callum. I find Liam's quite engaging, which I know a lot of people don't agree with, but he's not he's never going to be like I'm trying to think of like a really big personality who's going to sell lots and be really controversial, and like a Conor Benn. He's not like Conor Benn, but it's all these sort of things. And yeah, he is undervalued for how good a fighter he is. But we make this mistake in boxing of thinking the best fighters should be the biggest stars. It's never been like that. It's the biggest characters, and you have to engage on some level.
Yeah, it's like the Prince Azim effect. You know,
Callum's for guys like us. Like, we will appreciate Callum more than, you know, my family who were watching it this weekend who never watch any fights.
Yeah, people who watch boxing after football because they're still watching Sky Sports, and they like the razzmatazz and they like the glitz and the attraction of it. But then again, I thought now if you're a casual, sorry, that's a horrible word to use, I know, but if you're not so much, I thought someone like Callum Smith and his punching should be very attractive because
you don't remember him. That's the problem.
You
watch him and think he's really good, and then what do you say? What do you remember?
Yeah.
Let's give a bit of credit to Border League as well.
He was better than I'd seen any of the.
I would watch him against any UK light heavyweight.
Yeah,
if I was Wasserman, I'd try and get Lyndon Arthur in with him.
Yeah,
there you go, Wasserman. If you're watching Lyndon Arthur, get him in with Border League. Lucas,
it's a great test. You know, these asset tests, you want the guys to come through.
I enjoyed it because Border League was willing to engage, was willing to give us, and he did land a few good shots himself.
I wonder if he was scared. Especially. I thought he was fighting. I think he said nervous energy in the commentary, but I wonder if he kind of got in with Callum and went, right, I've got to give this to them. I can't let him dictate this. And I think that made the fight really good.
The problem with Callum Smith is you go in, you get up on the Friday at weigh-in day, you go on your way in, you look at him, you think, he's not that big. And then you go on the Saturday night, you get done up, you get your gloves on, you get your boots on, you go into that ring, and there he is, and he's fucking massive. He's twice the size he was. And that's the fear factor with Smith. Because he's a different human to who you're weighing in against. He's not the same fella, you know.
Yeah.
And I think Border League looked still very lean on the night.
He looked in amazing shape. Oh, what shape he looked in. He looked incredible. I remember we were saying that when we were watching it. I was like, Smith looked good, and I couldn't believe how good Border League looked.
Yeah, but the problem is Smith packed on what? 15, 20 pounds?
Yeah.
And with all that wonderful admiration of their physique and their weight, and in order for everyone to get to see the Liverpool Man United match, I'm just going to move us on to the main event where we had Anthony Joshua in the rematch against Alexander Usyk, where Usyk had defeated him at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and the rematch was in Saudi Arabia for financial reasons. And what did you make of the fight, guys?
I'll let you start, Adam.
Okay, so I really enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a more intense version of the first fight, and I thought both guys fought better, and it just meant that they just kind of leveled up each. And I scored it exactly the same as I did the first fight, 9-3 in favor of Joshua. Sorry, in favor of Usyk.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I was going to say. That's because my head's on the scorecards. I thought that this fight was a really good example of what was a reasonably close fight being scored very wide. I think we were talking about this, is each round in 3-minute blocks was a competitive round. But by the time we got to round 7, I had Usyk 6-1 up.
Yeah.
Because he was nicking the rounds. AJ would land a brilliant body shot. You could hear it and you could really feel it. But he couldn't get off enough. And because Usyk is so brilliant, he would catch you with like this, just a quick left hand. And then with the way he did it, Anthony's head went back. And as soon as the judges see you do that, it's going to start losing your rounds. Every single time, he didn't snap the jab out. He got lazy with the front hand. He came underneath with the kind of the screw shot with the right hand. It was amazing. As it got later on, Usyk figured it. So we go to the 9th, Joshua's best round of the fight. He hurts him to the body. He goes all in. 2 things happen here. One, that's his gas tank. He never quite gets his legs back underneath him there.
Yeah, because I was watching it with Joel, and I did say that. Has Joshua expended all his energy in the 9th and out to 10th? And we found the answer was yes, he had. So
to the 10th, AJ comes out and does what a great champion does, which is he goes, that was your best round.
Usyk.
Usyk.
Usyk
comes out,
yes,
dictates that next round, and basically all the damage that AJ did, Usyk was able to do in return without the same expenditure of energy. And the last couple of rounds, what I absolutely loved with Usyk is he's got to come at me now. Even he knows he's losing, and his feet were brilliant. AJ would start the attack. Usyk would look like he was about to engage. Just as he comes in with the kind of right hand, which he knew was coming, he takes 1 half step back, and it just means AJ falls short, and he hits him with 2-3 shots, and he will step round to the side. And by the time AJ comes round, he's got the whole ring, and he just kept repeating. It was fantastic. I loved it. I thought,
I did
really
too.
top level fight. I think again, what we need to appreciate here, AJ fought a really, really good fight, and actually, I think that version of AJ beats most other heavyweights.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think that's very much underappreciated. Usyk is as great as we thought he was.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Not so brief summary.
Yeah.
All yours, Luke.
Yeah.
I agree with most of what you said. One of the main things I don't think Usyk was as good as he was in London. I actually thought Usyk was a lot sharper in London and was able to assert himself a lot earlier. Now, obviously, some of that comes down to Joshua's style as well, the very subtle stylistic changes that he made. But no, I thought Usyk was a bit flat at times. He let Joshua in more than I thought he would, especially in round 9, where it was a bit of a mugging for a few seconds, but then he was able to make his way out of it. But I scored it 10-2. It's only a round in the difference. I thought round 3 and round 5 were close, where I wouldn't argue if someone gave Joshua those rounds. But yeah, with a competitive fight doesn't necessarily mean it's a close fight.
Yeah.
And that's what people need to understand when it comes to scoring fights, is it can be competitive without being at all close.
Yeah, but people need to score them round by round live, not after the fact.
Exactly. So that's
the difference between close and competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you were to use a football analogy, you could have a game where it's end to end, but only one team scores 4 goals, the other team only scores 1. It was a competitive game, but it wasn't close. Same with this fight. Usyk was winning the rounds, and he was having to earn his rounds, but he was winning them nonetheless.
Yeah.
And one thing I liked with Joshua was the feet were planted. He wasn't trying to be on his toes. He was there, and he was always in front of Usyk. No matter where he was in front of him. And there was a few things, like the corner was a mess for Joshua again. That Angel Fernandez was talking over Robert Garcia. Robert Garcia was basically the cut man.
And I mean,
if you're going to have a voice in your corner, I'm sorry, but I'm going to pick Robert Garcia over Angel Fernandez. Angel Fernandez might be a good technician in the gym, but he's not great in the corner. And like after round 3, the two of them both said, "Oh, we're 3-0 up. You're doing great." And I looked at my dad and I was like, "It's 2-1 to Usyk here, surely." Like,
yes,
it can't, you know.
As well.
And when you're blowing smoke up Joshua's arse, like, Joshua's obviously a bit naive when it comes to boxing. his boxing IQ.
That's the whole thing. He hasn't been boxing for very long. What was it, 18?
Like,
No.
12 years.
Yeah, but like he's only in it for 2 years before the
14
Olympics.
years,
Yeah, like he was obviously handpicked for the Olympics.
Well, no, he earned a spot. He did very well in the World Championships before the
Yeah, but I
Olympics.
mean, he was sought out by the British Olympic.
Oh,
You know, I mean,
But
they did want to do that, and they did it.
yeah, but there was no
one else that year that deserved it more than him either because of his performance in the World Championships.
No, I don't think he got ahead of him.
With Joshua, his like what he said after the last fight really worried me. When he said, "Oh, I thought I was looking like Ali in there."
Like, as a boxer,
you know yourself how you're doing, really.
And like you
can't surely say to yourself when you're getting your head pucked off you with left hands and right hooks that you're looking like Muhammad Ali. And the fact that he just had that naivety, because he must have known how he was feeling during the fight. Like, and same during this fight too. So during this fight, just because you do better doesn't mean you're winning. He was better than the Joshua last year. And as Adam rightly said, you'd fancy that Joshua against most heavyweights. Like, that style of Joshua would actually be very tough for Fury. If Fury couldn't land one on him and spark him.
I'd like to see that Joshua against Fury, I really would.
And I think, so would I. The only person I wouldn't like to see that Joshua... The only person I wouldn't like to see that Joshua in front of is Wilder, because that would go about 2 rounds. Joshua would be out cold.
Yeah, no.
I think if he stood in front of Wilder like that, it's a different kettle of fish. But no, I thought the fight was really entertaining. It was it was a chess match at times, and it was a fight at times. Do you know?
Well,
I think
like in round 9, especially when Joshua unleashed those 4 shots to the body in a row. That was like something out of a Rocky movie. I think he let himself go there a little bit. And I think, as I said in the last episode, he needs to do that more. He needs to let himself go a bit more. Because when he did that, he was bashing Usyk up. Like, that's a shot you throw in the bags, and someone would look at you and say, why are you throwing that? But he was actually able to do it there. And when, I don't know if this showed the same replays on Sky Sports, but he landed those body shots right under the elbow. They were well placed, really well placed shots. And how tough is Usyk?
Chin.
Because
so there's a
in
right
round
hand.
10.
Yeah,
in round 10, yeah.
I
was sorry,
my
you took
God.
the words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
They traded shots. So Usyk threw an up jab or a screw shot, and Joshua just went boom,
6 inches,
everything into this right hand.
And
he just took it, and he said to himself, "Right, okay, we'll go again." And he did, and he had his wits about him. He wasn't hurt or buzzed or nothing. And like I said in the group chat, in between rounds 9 and 10, Usyk needs to assert himself here, and that's exactly what he did. He got up off that stool and said, "Right, you want to fight? We'll have a fight."
That's why he's
around 10, 11, and 12, unless of course you're a judge.
And as we discussed as well with Usyk's mentality, again, he had that Eastern Bloc, that just robotic switch off, nothing, only fight. And after the fight, again, we've seen the emotions come out again. Now, we didn't see as much emotions from Usyk as we did from Joshua, but Usyk fell to his knees. There was tears. You know, he was clearly very proud of what he'd just done for his country. Never mind retaining the titles.
For him, like, and I mean, his country. I mean, and
we don't know what he saw a few months ago.
Oh God, no.
That's the top and bottom of it. We don't know what he saw.
But like, in fairness, I mean, and you can compare, like, talking about Ukraine. I mean, nobody expected Ukraine to be still in a war after all this time. Nobody expected Kiev to still be free. You know, and those Ukrainian men are fighting against a huge Russian might. You know, I can see why his passion and his, desire to serve.
We can't even comprehend it. And like, we can't even comprehend.
Of course we
And
can.
like,
we haven't
stuff. No, and like, hopefully, touch wood, we never will be. But with Usyk,
the ball again.
We don't know what he saw, and the fact that he was able to go in there at not very long notice either, to be honest, in the fight. It was about 9 weeks, really, maybe 8 weeks. And he got himself he was in fantastic condition. You don't take those shots off AJ without being in the shape of your life, to the head and to the body.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure one of those body shots would have killed me on Saturday night.
Oh yeah, gone straight through.
And
So speaking of body shots and headshots, by the way, I've got a question for you. So one of the things that I was I thought the difference between AJ potentially being really competitive or potentially winning that fight was, I thought he had a lot of success, and I was actually surprised. He was really good at hitting Usyk to the body. Like, he was effective at landing. I don't think I saw him once go right hand downstairs and come back and land the left hook. He never worked off it. And I think that was the next step. So he's talking about, like, he needs to evolve and get better. I think that's where he would have to go, was be able to go from downstairs.
I think tactically against Usyk, though, Usyk was ready to let that left hand go whenever Joshua threw the right downstairs. So I think he would have caught him in between shots if he threw the left hook.
Yeah.
Because one thing, that Joshua left hook against Ruiz, that's the shot that dropped Ruiz, was right uppercut left hook. He can throw it really nicely. But a fighter like Usyk, who likes to punch in between shots, maybe he was just wary of throwing that, coming up to a shot. Now, one thing I'd have said if I was Garcia, I was thinking about it on the night. Like, I would have asked Joshua, do you think he can hurt you? And if Joshua said no, I'd have said, well, fucking go for it now in the early rounds. Really put it on him. Those body shots, not single shots, multiples. And like you say, go body, head, body, whatever you want to do. But Joshua, obviously,
I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, he's the one taking the punches. And as you said rightly, I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
I think Usyk can hurt him, and did hurt him a couple of times on Saturday night again.
Yeah. And I'm just going to give my brief synopsis because I'm watching the clock. You had it 10-2, you did 9-3, I had it 8-4. And we're all considered wide, but I thought 8-4 was a very fair score to both boxers.
I won't argue with it.
10, 11, 12,
8-4 is as close as you should go.
God, I couldn't go any closer. I mean, because I was being, I know Joel had it closer than me, but I mean, that's, it's just the very nature of the person that Joel is,
Glasses, perhaps.
It's just he's a London fighter and he's a British fighter, but going to what I saw again, you guys had the benefit of listening to the corners, listening to everything. Obviously, when I was doing the watch along with Joel, we had complete silence. We had the sound of nothing, so it's basically visual only. And on that, I mean, you could see how Usyk just, really asserted his pressure on Joshua and took over as the fight went on. And I mean, round 9. I remember I was discussing with Joel, and Joel was kind of saying, Joshua was taking over here, and I says, or is this it? Has he thrown all his kind of eggs into this round 9 basket, and is Usyk just going to soak it all up and demolish him in 10 and 11? And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on who you're accounting for, I proved to be right, because Usyk sucked it all up, took the loss of round 9, but came back in round 10 and really asserted his dominance in Joshua, who it was clear had thrown all his eggs into that round 9 basket. And because he didn't achieve what he wanted to achieve, which was stopping Usyk or hurting Usyk, then he plumb out of ideas. And he fell apart in 10, 11 and 12. Now, I don't know how a judge could give round 12 or any of those 3 rounds to Joshua, but one give the whole bloody fight to Joshua, and I think that's an absolute disgrace. And I liked the way he was picked up on that, but he deferred.
Big up Rob Tabitha.
That's the name I want to say. Fantastic, Rob. But I wonder, is Rob going to suffer because of that now, if he's going to be marginalized and sidelined? But for the judge to defer to the judge's kind of inspector, I thought was pretty weak. I mean, you were the guy that scored it, not the judge's inspector. And the judge's inspector gave trite lines that we hear from every judge's inspector. Oh, it depends where you're sitting. I don't know where you could sit in round 12 and you could give that to Anthony Joshua. I really don't. And I'd say that as a person who judged boxing. I didn't judge pro boxing, but I judged amateur boxing. And there's no way in God's green earth you could no matter where you're sitting, give round 12 to Anthony Joshua. So that's just, and the CompuBox numbers back it up. Like, I mean, even say, oh, well, it's about presence. But you can't dominate a guy if you're throwing a third of the shots and landing a third of the shots he is. There's nothing you can do. apart from do an Irish jig or something in the middle of the thing to get some points. But I thought that was
in Joshua's defence, and to disagree with the two, I don't think he was gassed after round 9 because he came up off his stool.
Not gassed.
There's like a difference. So for me, what happened, like watching that fight, was again, if we go back to the taken analogy that we did last time, right?
Yeah.
The bars, right? Joshua's stamina went from like 80%, and what that did is it went from 80 to 50, 60, and I just thought that little bit of sharpness that it cost him was what was keeping him with Usyk, and I think that was the difference. So I don't necessarily think gas, but I think that was his moment. He was going to win it.
And I don't think it was gas either. I think it was like he'd thrown all his eggs into that running down basket and what do I have to fucking do here? So I'd say his morale was gone after.
So how he got up off a stool for round 10, it was with bad intentions. He got
purpose.
Up, and he got up and went straight over to Usyk.
Yeah, but
there was no messing about. But what did Usyk do? He put resistance in front of Joshua.
Yeah.
If Usyk would have went backwards, I think Joshua might have stopped him. And I'm not even joking saying that, right? But Usyk came out and landed a jab left hand, straight away down the pipe. And then Joshua was thinking, right, he's actually not hurt. Yeah. And then after that, then it was combination. It was combination central from Usyk from there on out.
Oh yeah.
So very quickly, because I know that we're running out of time. That reminded me in a kind of slightly different way of another recent heavyweight fight, which was when Deontay Wilder hit Tyson Fury. Fury went down. Yes. He thought, I've got him here. When Fury got up and put it back on him, it kind of breaks your soul a little bit. I think that is what kind of happened to AJ. Yeah. And very quickly, I saw quite an interesting take on Twitter, which was, so you were saying earlier, you thought Usyk was less than he was in the first fight, yeah? Right? Yeah. Someone was saying that Usyk is now gradually starting to physically deteriorate at his age. Do you reckon that he's not done by any stretch of the imagination, but it's now, he's not going to continue to keep getting better physically?
I think
obviously heavyweights usually have.
Regarding Luke, Luke said this before about a guy whose adrenaline, he pushed all his adrenaline into round 9, and then when it didn't work out, and when Usyk came back and hit him the way he hit him in the 10th, he went, "Fuck," you know. So the adrenaline just left his body. So that was a good analogy. That's what I thought of when I saw round 10, 11, and 12. That was the analogy that Luke gave. But I just quickly want Stephen now. I said, great analysis always, thanks. Enjoy the game, especially Luke. Hopefully. I don't know. Luke, are you going to shut? How are you going to enjoy the game? So what do I know?
But yeah, with that, you've got to be willing to go to zero. Never mind, 50, 60. You got to be willing to go to zero. And Usyk was. But with your question, Adam, I don't think it will affect him too much as a heavyweight. As is the consensus with heavyweight that they can go on longer. I don't think we're going to see him with a big belly like George Foreman. But Usyk's always going to be in shape. He's always going to have, good stamina. He's always going to have abs. He's always going to look good aesthetically. And I think
sell lots of product.
Yeah, apart from the hair, he's always going to look good aesthetically, right? Wouldn't say that to his face now, but he physically, I don't think he's gone down much because if he had, those punches would have flattened him. He's in as good a shape as any human can be to take punches.
Yeah,
and his feet didn't look any slower. His hands weren't any slower. His time and his head movement was all there. Everything physical-wise, he looked amazing. I just think his performance wasn't as good. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to wrap it up quickly now. Time is against us. I just want to ask this question of both of you. Usyk, Joshua, who should they fight next if they should continue to fight? And I presume, judging by what I've heard, you would encourage both. Well, obviously, you would encourage Usyk to continue fighting. But Joshua, I think both of you guys think, yes, he should continue fighting. I think if Joshua perhaps thinks he wants to call it a day, perhaps he should. But,
so very quickly, my granddad had a very, very happy saying, which was, if someone was talking nonsense, he would say, away and shite. Joshua is 32. That is one of the better performances you can do while losing. he's now finally got a chance to go away and build himself back up. He clearly enjoys it. Like, he clearly likes boxing. Why would he retire? So I think all this kind of like, oh, if he loses, he should retire. It's just lazy. It's really, really lazy.
You calling me lazy?
I think it's a lazy boxing line. It's a lazy boxing through line, which is, oh, he's lost his titles and he's rich. Why would he want to continue doing it? There are a ton of athletes that have won everything and are desperate to continue doing because that's what got them there.
Look at Nazim Hamed becoming a meme saying that Eubank should retire after losing
No,
to Rose.
But can I say why I think he should retire? Because I don't believe he's a natural boxer. I think he
could have fooled me.
Yeah.
Would have fooled lots of people. But you know what I mean? He's not quite like Usyk, been boxing since he was 6. He came into this and I don't believe that his heart was ever as truly in boxing as Usyk's was. That's all I'm saying. So if he's made his money and he wants to exit, I could understand that. That's all I'm saying. Now, back to Luke.
The thing is, just to
comment on what you said there, sometimes people are just better.
And
Usyk is just better than Joshua. Joshua is better than 99.9% of heavyweights on this planet.
So
today.
Who should he fight next?
Zhang in China.
If I was him, I'd fight Zhang in China. And if I was him, if Ruiz and Ortiz is anyway close, which it shouldn't be, Ruiz should finish Ortiz, right? I would go for the rubber match next.
Agreed.
White
or Ruiz after Zhang.
Should he continue with Matchroom?
Yeah.
I mean, he is going to continue with Matchroom. He can't get out of that. For Usyk, there's one fight and there's only one fight. So it's funny, with Joshua losing, I'm interested in a ton of fights. I'd love to see AJ in a bunch of fights.
Yeah,
Dubois.
I think the only, just to finish off my last word today, I think the only fighter that I wouldn't be confident picking Usyk against is Wilder.
Oh, I disagree. I think Usyk dances Wilder all around.
Wilder not.
He should, but I'm not. I can't bet against that right hand. I just can't.
So that one we can agree to disagree on. I think Usyk never lets him set. He'll never let him set that right hand. So I totally agree. If he lands the right hand,
I'm firmly with Adam on this one here. I think Tyson Fury is a far more interesting and dangerous prospect.
But it's got to be Fury. Basically, to end on this,
it
has to be Fury Usyk next. Done.
Yes, and we want it at Christmas time. And you can have it in Old Trafford. You can have it in bloody City of Manchester Stadium. Wherever you want. But
it's like Fury coming out dressed as Santa Claus or something.
But it's likely to be in Saudi Arabia because that's where the money will be to finance that fight, to be fair.
Right, lads.
I'm going to run.
Yes, we're all going to run.
And so I might have a cry later on, don't know.
For everyone that's going on to watch the football, enjoy, and I hope your team draws because I'll win money. Okay, guys.
See you later, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye. Slán.